Hello there, guys. It's me, Dirt Muffin here. I'm here for Chapter 12 of the Golden Armor. Uh, Here we go. Chapter 12. Conflicts. Conflicts everywhere. The Golden Armor. The first thing Angel noticed upon entering Shining Armor's office was how still it was. His desk sat all along, covered in papers of various scribbles, along with a mostly melted candle and a picture of two mares, one lavender and a small and one bright pink. Okay. Angel assumed the bright pink one was his wife. She was currently scouting the room for. Plaques and small trophies littered the wall behind the desk, offering commendation for exceptional service, exemplary behavior, honor roll, and even varsity hoofball MVP. Angel found it kind of funny as she went to examine the trophies. That one of them, the exceptional service one, was from the famous fast food chain Sandwich Queen. There was also a picture of it Shining standing proudly in his red officer jacket and Princess Cadence in her beautiful white dress. Suddenly, the sound of hoof falls echoed over to Angel, and she spun around. 3 ponies all dressed in black were standing around the desk. Angel narrowed her eyes and whispered, "Ninja ponies, we meet again." Before any pony had time to blink, 3 ninjas moved on Angel, who was reacting accordingly. She leaned back and dodged a small silver shuriken as it spun by her head and buried itself into the wall. Angel swept a hoof out and caught one of the ninjas in the leg, causing him to fall over while the other 2 bore down on her. Angel quickly retracted the hoof and slid under Shining's desk as the 2 ninjas landed. They made the mistake of spinning around to see her as she tackled one of them into the trophy wall. The ninja was stunned just long enough for Angel to deliver both rear legs to the face of the third, with one flying away, one in her grip, and the other just now getting to his hooves. Angel had the advantage. She grabbed the large trophy of Shining's and stuffed it into the head of the ninja she was holding on to, and smashed her right forehoof into the side of it. The trophy dented slightly, but rang out a nice, clear note loud enough to hurt the ninja's ears. She didn't hesitate to throw the ninja into his friend who was staring at her, unsure of what to do. The 2 collided and fell to the floor. Angel spun around just barely dodged a hoof to the face. She leaned over to her left to avoid the other hoof and countered with a kick. She landed right into the ninja's gut, and he doubled over. She gave a quick spin to gain momentum and landed a particularly nasty hoof to the face, sending the ninja back into the wall. She spun around again to see the one ninja struggling to pull the trophy off his head, and the other trying to push him off. Angel ran over to them and threw the trophy head into the wall of trophies again. The one on his head rang out loud again as he struck the stone wall, and the ninja collapsed. Angel stopped and stared at the final ninja, who jumped to his hooves. "Who sent you? Where's the captain?" Angel growled at him. The ninja responded by dropping a smoke pellet that caused Angel to cough. She cursed herself for being a bad pony then. They were sensitive to smoke and dust, which is why they preferred damp caves. Once the smoke cleared, the ninja was gone. Angel stood there proudly and knew she would not rest until she figured out what happened to her superior officer, the great Shining Armor. At least that's what should have happened. She somehow thought up the whole scenario in the 4 seconds it took her to push open the door for Princess Cadence. Inside the room, Shining sat behind his desk, shuffling papers. A set of regal golden armor Angel had never seen sat in the corner on a ponykin. 4 pictures sat on the wall behind him. One of him in the armor looking awesome, and one of a brilliantly blue unicorn smiling with a pretty white unicorn mare, who had streaks of purple in her mane, along with a younger version of Shining and a small lavender filly. One was of both Shining and Cadence on their wedding day, and the final one was with the 2 of them overlooking the town on the balcony of the castle. He looked up and smiled at Angel and said, "Oh, Angel, just who I was looking for. Please, come in." Angel gave an awkward smile and stepped inside, allowing Princess Cadence to stride in gracefully. "What about me?" she asked in a hurt tone. Shining immediately got out from behind his desk and trotted up to her. "You never need permission to see me," he stated with a hint of playfulness in his voice. Cadence giggled sweetly and rubbed her nose against Shining's. Angel felt a bit awkward standing there, and Shining looked at her. "Oh, yes, Angel, I have a special assignment for you. My wife, Princess Cadence," he stated. "Hi," Princess Cadence chimed in, waving a hoof at Angel. "She wants to go into town tomorrow night and get to know the ponies and catch a lot better. I thought you'd be perfect escorter due to your amazing social skills, he stated. Angel's eyes grew wide and she stared at the two ponies. She was being asked to guard a princess of love now? Angel cracked a huge grin. Sure, she liked watching Philomena, but how could she pass up on that offer? Shining nodded to her happily, and Cadence smiled. Wait. Oh. Private Angel accepts this assignment, sir. She almost yelled happily and gave a salute. Shining nodded to her happily, and Cadence smiled. I'm sure you'll do fine, miss. I'm afraid I don't know your last name, Cadence said, her nice smile turning into an awkward grin. Beats, ma'am. Private Angel Beats, but everyone just calls me Angel, the Bat Pony responded enthusiastically. Ah, okay, Miss Angel or Miss Beats. I'm sure you'll do fine, Cadence said, her smile returning to one of happiness instead of awkwardness. Then it's settled. Report to my quarters tomorrow at 1700 hours, and I'll brief you on the assignment. I would do it now, but I've got some more pressing issues on my plate, Shining said in his best official tone. Angel saluted happily and trotted out the door, and it shut, leaving Cadence and Shining alone. Cadence turned a sly grin to Shining. Pressing matters, huh? She said sarcastically. Shining shrugged and said, Hey, it worked when I was dating you. Cadence gave her a sweet laugh, and then Shining could listen to that Shining could listen to all day, and planted a soft kiss on him. It doesn't matter. Being around my husband is the most pressing matter, she cooed to him. Up in a tall tower, Philomena called unhappily. Her guards were stiff and mean, ignoring the proud Phoenix as she tried to play with them. She missed that one guard who had played with her, that one with really big golden eyes. Philomena was almost 1,000 years old, but that didn't mean she didn't like to play. Being in a stuffy tower and stuck on a perch for days, really boring. Not to mention Celestia was always too busy to see her Phoenix. Philomena pecked at the perch as she stood on and scanned the room again. Same guards, same place, same faces. They had for the past 4 hours. She called loudly in frustration, hoping the guard would return soon. As for Valerie and Comet, the two sat down at a table, and Valerie made an attempt to teach Comet how to play Parada. He was a quick learner, but he often forgot what hooves were. He held out 4 nines and 2 princes, and smiled proudly. Straight flush, he stated proudly, and Valerie buried her face into her claw. That's a full house, and you're supposed to only have 5 cards, she repeated for the 10th time. Comet looked back at himself and scowled. This game is too complicated, he mumbled to himself. He thought he was learning the game, but all he was really doing was annoying Valerie. Cards were not Comet's strong suit, but since he would play board games when he was a colt. In fact, I've got it! Comet shouted abruptly, startling Griffin. He jumped up and dashed off to find something, leaving a bewildered-looking Valerie alone. Oh, God. She sighed and started gathering up the cards and humming a song to herself. It took Comet a couple minutes, but he returned happily with a box in his mouth and set it down on the table, and Valerie peered at it. Checkers? She asked out loud. Comet beamed. Yup. It's a fun game. It uses a lot of strategy and requires some trickery. Like Prater, he said with a smile. Valerie looked up at the oddball stallion and found herself starting to blush. She looked away and agreed to play. After about half an hour, Valerie was staring at the multicolored board of alternating red and black squares, intent on winning. Comet had 2 kings and 3 regular pieces left, but Valerie had a single king and 5 regular pieces. This game was intense, as Valerie thought of possible moves and their outcomes. Her king was back against Comet's side of the board, blocked by 2 of his normal pieces. His kings were in prime location to take most of her 5 remaining pieces, but she moved one anyways. Comet promptly jumped her piece, followed by then another and another. Hey, that's not fair! Valerie shouted. As a king, I can take multiple pieces, if they are within jumping distance from each other, Comet stated proudly. He had explained the rules before Hoof, but Valerie must not have been paying attention. Valerie grumbled to herself and looked back at the board. She was now down to 1 king and 2 normal pieces, but they were too far away from each other. Comet's pieces, however, had formed a nice line with her king near the far side. Valerie studied the formation for a minute, while Comet leaned back, stretching his spine. He was sure he was going to win. Valerie suddenly saw a pattern to his pieces, and grinned to herself. She reached out, took her king, then jumped one of the blocking pieces, then one of his kings, then another normal piece, and then his other king. She looked up and grinned evilly to Comet and said, "Gotcha." Comet looked down to see her make her move and watched as his pieces were wiped off the board. His eyes widened to the size of dinner plates as she removed his black tokens, and he was left with one lone one on his side of the board. Valerie leaned back as well and clicked her claws together, smiling smugly to Comet. Comet, for his part, was rendered speechless by her move. It didn't really matter, though, since Angel busted through the door and jumped around on the table, singing happily about an important assignment. After 5 minutes of that, she noticed Comet in Valerie's game and wanted to play. The final score was Valerie winning with 7 victories, Angel with 5, and Comet with 2. He sat there dejectedly as Angel and Valerie rambled on about their victories. He was slightly mad at losing so much, but he wasn't going to be a poor sport. In fact, he was actually impressed with both Valerie and Angel, since they'd beaten him like that. They were both smart, really smart. Comet liked that in Maris and found himself debating in his mind about who was cuter on his scale. Angel, the ever-loving bad pony who spent a nice day snuggled up next to him, or Valerie, the griffin who was kind enough to apologize about being foolish and had a great personality. Honestly, Comet thought they both had nice features, and Angel had those eyes and the figure to match, since he had stolen a glance back in Basic he never forgave himself for doing. She was also his friend and had even opened up some of her personal information to him. Valerie, on the other hand, was like a puzzle he had to solve. She revealed very little about herself, but that wasn't a bad thing. It kept him guessing about her, with his mind at war with itself about the two sitting at the table with him. He barely noticed a letter magically appear in front of him. Angel and Valerie did, though. They both grabbed at it, and soon Comet was trying to pry his own letter from a black claw and a gray hoof. It took some time, but he eventually did. He opened the letter and read it to himself. Valerie and Angel watched with mild interest as his face grew from a stoic look to one to shock. "My parents are coming here!" he shouted. And that's the end of chapter 12, I think. Yes, indeed it is. Thank you guys for listening, and leave a comment down low. Yeah.